show where the SANFL could not be tighter than Israel the AFL. They're probably pretty comparable to see who can get up, who can get down. So we thought we better get the expert from the SANFL, Luke Marchioro, joins us. Luke, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, guys. Good to be back.
Yes, mate, and great to see you. Hey, before we get on to the games on the weekend, the games coming up, mate, the Eagles coach stepping away. Who do you think looks most likely to fill in that shoe?
I think it could be the first of a couple of musical chairs potentially going around the league at the moment. I think there's a couple of positions that are potentially quite flexible. So whether South Adelaide, we might see a change there potentially with Jared Wright. And obviously, I think he's out of contract at the end of the year. So there's a couple of potential opportunities there. But these coaches seem to come, these well-performed amateur league coaches, so there could be someone like that. That's where Jade Sheedy came from, Athelston, obviously, or there could be someone that's been out of the system or, someone looking to step up. So I think it'd be really interesting. Michael Knowles a name to watch as well, been doing some good things with Norwood Reserve, so ex-SANFL guy with a lot of experience might be looking to take the next step. So him, Richard Douglas are in the system as well. So there's a few names around the place, so it'll be interesting to see where things shake out with those vacancies at the end of the year.
All right, well, we're talking about the Eagles then, mate. You were there. It was North versus Eagles on the weekend. It was nearly two halves. Eagles looked good early, then North understand there was a bit of a rev up at half time and they came out, although the Eagles kicked the first goal, North kicked the next 7 or 8. How'd you see it?
It was the most desperate North Adelaide's looked all year in the second half. It really looked like they thought their season was slipping away from them, and it led with Sam Mays through the midfield. Played his best game for North Adelaide on the weekend, 29 touches, 2 goals, and I really like their forward line mix. Jesse White was missing on the weekend, and with Hilda, Castellini and Keenan Ramsey, they looked really mobile in their forward line. It was the most dangerous I think they've looked all year in that forward half, and I think it was really, I think the highest score for about 8 or 9 weeks as well on the weekend. So they're a team that's starting to get their best side back on the park, and if they can get into September, they might cause some headaches because they do play Adelaide Oval quite well.
Oh, they'll cause some headaches, all right. There's no doubts about that. I always thought that with North, but they've struggled with a lot of ins and outs and whatever. But as you say, if they get their squad back, they're hard. I like them in the sunshine. You get a bit of sunshine and a nice dry track. I reckon North Adelaide are a bit of a danger.
And Moore comes back too. He's taking, had a long pre-season, come back off an injury. He's just starting to find some good form.
Yeah, and he was really important in the second half for him as well. It was Mays and Moore really through that midfield that stood up for them. And I really like their forward line mix. I think Mitch Harvey through the midfield, he's such a smart footballer. When he gets his hand on it in the ruck and around the ground, he's a really, really dangerous player. So they've got some questions to ask themselves there with their forward line set up and how they go into September, because I think the midfield looked better with Mitch Harvey in the ruck, and it looked better with Dyson Hilda being the focal point in that forward 50.
And the Dogs on the weekend now, they would be kicking themselves. They get done in the 35th minute of the game. I think that was caused through a pretty bad concussion, was it? The reason, the length of that?
I think so, yeah. So basically 22 points up late in that game and really had the game on toast. They've really been a really good last quarter side as well. So run over the top of by Sturt for the second time this year, and it's 3 games by less than a goal now this season, and they're sitting on the outside of the 5 looking in, and it may cost them a September spot in the end, these close losses and that little bit of inexperience at the end of games.
I would have liked to have been in amongst the Bulldog crowd when that free kick was paid. Because I think it was a hole in the ball in the 35th minute of the last quarter to get knocked off. So that's a bit stiff. But, the Dogs, really, they had that game. They controlled that game from what I saw and what I heard until right at the death.
They were really efficient going forward. They only had 29 inside 50. Sturt, again, inaccuracy nearly cost them another game. It's been a bit of a problem for them this year. So, they had their chances to be further in front than what they were. Sturt, Central's got on a bit of momentum and, squandered a really, really good opportunity to cement their spot in the 5. It's 2 losses by less than a goal in a row. Yeah. And it's going to be really difficult for them to make September now, even though they control their own destiny still.
Hey, mate, Westies and Adelaide up at Murray Bridge. I understand it was outstanding up there. I spoke to Barb Curley yesterday and she said it was an absolutely fantastic tribute to Neil and the family up there, and it was a great game. She said, it wasn't quite true to the scoreline, and full credit to having the game up there.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's something the SANFL have done really well the last couple of years. We've seen it with the Russell Ebert game up in the Riverland as well that Port Adelaide have been a part of, and I think it's a really fantastic initiative by the SANFL, West Adelaide, and those clubs involved as well, Adelaide and Port. It's pretty easy for them to say, no, we don't want to send our guys on a bus out to Murray Bridge, when they're playing up for AFL spots and that. Yeah. For them to buy in and want to be able to do that and really embrace the occasion, and you saw all the promotional stuff during the week, and it was the same thing with Port earlier in the year, and they've done a really good job honouring the league legacy of those SANFL legends and guys who helped build the league and build those teams coming into the AFL as well. So it was a really good game of footy, and Westie's continuing to improve, but just not finding a way to win as well.
Oh, I really like how they do that really well in Europe. They have the cups that have been over 50, 60 years old. So you've got the Neil Curley Cup, you've got the Russell Ebert Cup that you go for, and there's a big tradition around that.
Yeah.
And I love that we build that. We just need to do more of that in our sport, I reckon.
I couldn't agree more. I think that those two players you mentioned then, or those two people you mentioned, Russell Ebert and Neil Curley, they absolutely deserve a game in their hometown. And like you said, mate, full marks to Adelaide Footy Club and Port Adelaide for getting involved, because they don't really
do it.
Nord
squeezed by, mate. Squeezed. South.
A really, really emotional day, obviously, after the passing of Nick Loudon as well. Yeah. So, really good for Norwood to come away and get the result. South Adelaide, again, another lapse in a quarter, really cost them a game of footy. Came home really strongly and just couldn't get the job done. But I think really emotionally, I think a lot of people would have been willing Norwood over the line in that game after what's been a really difficult couple of weeks for that footy club.
Well, 39 points. I think they were 39 points up early in the final term, Norwood. That's a big comeback from South Adelaide.
I did.
A very big comeback.
I spoke to a few people about it, and a lot of people compared it to the Phil Walsh showdown, where a few years ago, where Adelaide were dominating that game, and just the emotional drain of the week and everything sort of caught up with them a little bit, and they just sort of ran out of legs. And South Adelaide came home really hard, and just didn't get the job done in the end. But full credit to Norwood, who with Jackson Callow back, their forward line looks really potent, and they've had a couple of really good wins to finish the season off at them.
Yeah, no, well done by Norwood, and that was a good game, mate. Let's look at what's coming up this weekend. Panthers sit in 8th spot, Port in 4th spot.
Port Adelaide, a win pretty much secures a final spot for them with their percentage. I think with being 2 or 3% in front of Centrals and Norwood, if they can win that game, they'll be pretty much secured, and they will have another crack the week after. So I think Port will win. I think South Adelaide have probably been the biggest disappointment this year with some of their recruiting, and I think they're going to be a little bit hamstrung in terms of where they finish now. So I think Port will win that game.
Well, that was another close game too on the weekend. We had some really close games.
Oh, yeah,
Port and Glenelg was a pretty good game down at Alberton, only about 8 or 9 points in it in the end. So that's a pretty good game of footy.
Doesn't matter how undermanned Port Adelaide seem to be, they always seem to play well against Glenelg and always seem to give them a lot of difficulty. So I don't think Glenelg will be wanting to run into Port Adelaide in September. But I think it was a really good performance by Port. But Glenelg just did enough to win and secure that top 2 spot.
This is probably the game of the weekend for obvious reasons. Roosters in 5th, Central's in 6th. It could pretty much finish someone's season.
I think it'll finish Central District season if they don't win. I know they do play Port in the last round, but that percentage gap is quite considerable. I really like North Adelaide in that game. I just think they're getting back to some of their best footy, and they're just sort of building a little bit nicely. And I think that midfield will be too much for Central District. I think when they bat deep with Wigg and Mays and Moore and that going through there, and Campbell Coombe as well, now they've got that best 22 back on the park. I think they can be really dangerous in September.
Is that Prospect?
Yep, Prospect. The other one that's going to be pretty interesting, Adelaide and Sturt, second versus Sturt second, Adelaide third. So it's a ripping weekend of footy. That one's going to be a boiler. Yeah,
Sturt needs a win to keep their double chance hopes alive. Their top spot chances alive. I think they'll beat the Crows at Unley Oval. I just think that Adelaide, their injuries are starting to mount at AFL level, and you're starting to see it now at SANFL level as well. So obviously we've seen James Borlace and Mark Keane and Matt Crouch go up to AFL level. They lost Elliot Himmelberg and Will Hamill on the weekend. So all of a sudden you're starting to see, instead of 3 or 4 top-ups, it's now 7, 8, 9, 10. And I think that attrition will start to wear on the Crows a little bit, and they'll hold emergencies out again as well. So I think Sturt will be too strong in that game on the weekend.
When you say that, Luke, that injuries and that are going to affect Adelaide and whatever, the 2 AFL clubs can't pick everybody anyway, can they, I think?
Port Adelaide will be able to. So now they've secured a double chance. They'll basically be playing up until SANFL Grand Final weekend. So as long as they're in at AFL level, they can pick and choose and do whatever they like with their side. If Adelaide don't make the finals, they can only pick players that have qualified. So it's 3 games after June 30, and you've got to have played more games at SANFL level than AFL level, I think, after a certain date. So this is where the qualification issue starts to become an issue for Adelaide. So guys like Matt Crouch, who played a lot of footy at the start of the year, may not have played enough games after June 30. Same with Mark Keane, same with James Borlace, and same with some of these other guys that they've brought through to that level. Luke Curvis is another one. So as long as you're in, you're okay. So this is why Port Adelaide could be quite dangerous if they get in. They're going to have guys pushing for AFL selection, and they're going to be able to pick from their full side, whereas the Crows won't have that. The Crows won't have that luxury.
Okay.
Westies Norwood?
Westies just need a win, and I think they're due this weekend. I think they can really...
They played some good footy this year.
They played some really good footy in long patches. They've lost, I think, there's 8 games by under 3 goals or something like that. And they've been really competitive and really in games a lot of the time and just haven't found a way to win. I think Norwood, a really emotional week last week. I wouldn't be surprised if West Adelaide got the points there. It's really tough to back up from a result like that.
Last one, Eagles, Tigers?
I think Glenelg will win comfortably. Eagles on a bit of a rebuild, playing a lot of kids, looking to develop internally and playing these guys. They had some good performances, but I think Glenelg will be too strong. I think they'll kick a big score.
Good point.
Luke Marchioro, our special guest as always, right across the SANFL. There's going to be a ripping weekend of footy, some finals chances on the line. Get down there and support your team. Stay with us.